Could you please pronounce your name correctly for me?
Yes, David Strauzz.
Now, you go with the double Z.
That's correct.
Is that your given name, or
No.
is that your sort of tag name?
That's, I would say that's my artistic pseudonym.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you're from...
I can tell you why as well.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, keep in mind, podcast, you can be as long and as elaborate as you want.
Okay.
This is not about short sound bites. This is about
right.
stories.
Yes.
So, be long and as
Okay.
elaborate.
So when I was had a studio in Boston, I was starting to exhibit very briefly or in New York City. So when I was trying to purchase the domain or a domain name, I found out that there's 5 or 6 David Strauzz is like with 2 S's
Yeah.
in New York City alone in the art community.
Wow.
So I'm like, for a 6th or 7th, that doesn't make any sense. So I was thinking about what to do, and my best friend, who's an artist in London, Ontario, in Canada, Greg Benz, he uses Z at the end of his name, which because of his DJing and music production background. So I decided I'm gonna change it to 2 Zs for no other reason than to buy the domain name and then to make myself slightly unique.
Oh, yeah. I had the same problem. My name's Matthew Dols, which is, I think, a reasonably uncommon name. And there's another person named Matthew Dols. He's a drummer in Iowa, and he bought mattdols.com
Yes.
like 18 years ago.
Yes.
And it took me 13 years of constantly putting it on back order saying, if it ever comes available, I
Yes.
want to buy it.
Yes.
After 13 years, I finally got
Nice.
mattdols.com. I've owned matthewdols.com for, I don't know, what, 19 years now.
Yes.
But mattdols.com
Yes.
took me 13 years to
Crazy.
get back from this drummer who never did anything with it. The website sat blank for 13 years,
Oh,
and he
that's
kept
funny.
paying for it. And I was just like,
That's funny because my music production name was Ebrius, at the time in the mid-90s when everybody had a really kind of like mysterious pseudonym. My name was Ebrius, which is Latin for drunk or inebriated. And and I let it expire. Somebody in Scandinavia picked it up, and they've done nothing with it either. I believe they're in music as well, but they've really done nothing with it. So if I could get that back, that'd be awesome.
I love the times when we all used to use Latin phrases. We thought it would somehow give us more pastiche kind of thing. Like, ooh, I used Latin phrase for this.
That's right. Yeah.
Like my professors even taught me at one point. They said, "Oh, it's really good to throw a Latin phrase in your artist statement." And I was like, "Oh God, we were so pompous back in those days.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit."
There's certain trends that are still happening to this day that's kind of like, I'll try and stay away from that.
I find people are still doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do portfolio reviews online, and like I'm constantly running into people that are like throwing out Latin phrases and quoting Greek gods and mythology and stuff in their artworks, and I'm just like, oh my God.
I know. That's why, to be honest, and I know we mentioned in the past that you wanted to steer away from talking about street art, but really that's why I enjoy street art the most, is because I think it's as authentic as it can be in the art world. Now, trust me, on Instagram, you'll find 55,000 people who call themselves street artists, and they probably have never painted a wall in their life or done really anything that relates to street art. Regardless, it doesn't matter. I think for me, it's a really refreshing group where you do whatever you want and you don't really necessarily have to tie yourself to some massive thesis, like you said, with some references to Latin history, etc.
Well, don't get me wrong. I appreciate and respect a good mural, a great piece of street art. What I don't like, and I'm sure I'm probably going to get bad emails about this, but like what I don't like is just tagging. Like especially when I see it on a beautiful building or a gorgeous whatever, like a beautiful piece of marble, or like just the other day I was actually walking home and I saw there's this contemporary building near where I live, and it's got this beautiful dark wall and it's been pristine for like 10 years. And all of a sudden, some guy just went in, or girl, I don't know, went in with a white spray paint and tagged it. And I'm just like, like that hurts me. Like, because I think the building is beautiful, and I think the tag has destroyed beauty of that structure.
Yes.
So I don't like that when
Yes.
they destroy something in the act of doing their
Yes.
thing. Now, if they're like recently you were given a wall basically by the city, I believe, or the municipality, and then you did something on it.
right.
I think that's fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. I mean, like if you have designated spaces to do something and then you do it, great. But
Yes.
I really, really have a big pet peeve of like destroying something that's already beautiful with something illegal,
Yes.
basically.
Would you like me to comment?
Yes,
You would?
Yeah, I mean, contradicts me. Like,
No,
I mean,
it's not. It's not a
like-
contradiction at all. I think tagging is literally a game of cat and mouse. I think if the rules or the laws were more harsh, if they were, if the authorities were essentially monitoring, or even buffing, as an example, buffing is essentially the act where the authorities then clean those walls. And I know it can become expensive, but it's if somebody is getting up a lot and their work keeps on getting buffed, it becomes annoying, and you probably will start to reconsider your tagging career, because spray paint is expensive. But also, there's all sorts of sub context. There's a bit of anarchy in there. There's rebelliousness, and also in contrast to that, I think a lot of pseudo anarchists are upset with how many ads and billboards there are in the cities, that we're being pushed, or these messages are being pushed on. I don't want to say us, but the tagging community. And therefore, this is their kind of counter measure, if you will.
Oh, I have no problem with people tagging
Yeah.
advertising or billboards
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
The ones that I have problems with is like here in downtown Prague, like I'll go down, there's this beautiful door that was obviously handcrafted like 100 of years ago, probably. And it's magnificent, and somebody tags it.
Yes.
And that hurts.
Agreed.
like
Agreed.
I'm like, ugh.
I myself, I mean, I'm opening myself up for a lot of criticism as well, painting on Kotva in Náměstí Republiky in Prague. But I myself would never paint on something that I would consider truly historical or extremely expensive or difficult to buff. Like you said, a marble wall, some kind of middle-aged grill or door or gate or something like that. Like, to me, that
Kills me.
yeah, I myself personally wouldn't do that. But here we go. Now I'm gonna probably get some nasty emails as well that I'm painting on Kotva, which is a historic building. And I know that there's there are conversations being had about what we did there, but
What are you talking about?
well, Kotva.
The one you did the faces on.
Well, so there's another, that wall is okay because
was
that's
gonna
not a
say.
historic wall,
Yeah.
but there's another portrait that I painted about maybe 2 months ago on Kotva, which is the shopping center in Náměstí Republiky. There's Palladium Mall, and then across the street it's a geometric building, I believe.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
So there was a kind of a corporate action, and I was commissioned to paint a large portrait on the side of the building.
Right. Yes, because that building is under historic preservation
yes.
all like last year.
Yes. Yeah. So if there are critics out there, pardon me, if there are critics out there, then they would have the power to criticize that work because it is on a historical building.
But there's a big difference, and this is where like I differentiate on my sort of rules about not my rules, but like my personal ethos about like street arts and stuff. If somebody commissions you, fine, I don't care. Like so, even if it's a historical place or some magnificent place, if the owner of the property commissions you to do it,
Yes.
that's their choice.
Yes.
They own that property. They can do with it as they wish. If they desire to add, some sort of mural or street art or whatever to
Yes.
their whatever property, that's their right. It's when people go in and do it illegally and damage something that was inherently beautiful or
Yes.
historic or something like this. That's when I have a problem.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I have no problem if the owner of the property commissions you.
Yes.
More power to them. That's their choice.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah, I'm not here to dictate who can do what with their
Right.
own property.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
And neither am I. to be honest. I think it was an exciting project. I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do that. It wasn't without its challenges. The project started at 10 p.m. and I was supposed to be finished at 6 a.m. I ingested probably 7 Red Bulls in a short span of time. It was insane. And I'll look back on it for the rest of my life as something that I literally have no idea how I lived through it.
That's very fast.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. I think I climbed the ladder, I mentioned on Instagram, 60 times in 6 hours or 70 times in 6 hours.
It's good workout.
Yeah, it was a great workout. Yeah.
All right. So let's get back a step, because a lot of people listening may not know a lot about your background and all this. So you are Canadian and Czech, and you were raised in Canada. You now live in the Czech Republic. Give us a little bit more sort of background.
I'll keep it incredibly short. My parents escaped Czechoslovakia in 1973 through England. I was born in 1976 in London, Ontario, which is between Toronto and Detroit. I went to one of the premier post-secondary art schools in Canada, which is called Beal Art. I believe that some of the students or graduating students next year are going to be coming to Czech Republic. So I hope if they hear this, I would love to entertain them here at Pragovka. So after Beal, I went to OCAD University, or OCA at the time when I went, and they've gone through a series of name changes. But anyway, I went to Ontario College of Art and Design in Toronto. I studied industrial design. I deviated from my art career for a few years because I wanted to kind of immerse myself in materials and manufacturing processes, because my life goal was to create artistic furniture, because in Canada you could purchase European furniture, but at an incredible expense.
Yeah, I remember those days.
So that was the objective. But then as I deviated farther and farther from my artistic life, I decided to change and get back into it. We moved to Boston, where I had a studio there, and I decided to go full-time again into artwork every day, all day. And I really started to feel that I was making some headway in Boston, not only in Boston, but also in New York City. And then after 4 years, because the American culture and lifestyle is pretty hardcore, I think 2 months after we moved to Boston, there was the marathon bombings. And that was like our introduction to America. And so for us Canadians, it was like, what is this? Like, this is intense. So fast forward, after 4 years in Boston, we moved to a small shack in Northern Ontario to decide what our next step was after a statistical analysis on paper. And thanks to the fact that I had Czech citizenship or dual citizenship, we moved to Prague about 5 years ago, where
You keep saying we.
Yeah, my wife and I.
Okay.
Yeah. So here I am 5 years later in Prague, working as an artist full-time. I've got a studio at Pragovka and Prague 9. So if anybody has never been here, I recommend coming to see some old classic architecture that is slowly being renewed. There's a great cafe here that make exceptional coffee, and they're very supportive of my efforts.
All right. So you moved here with your wife 5 years ago.
That's right.
Why Prague? So like, you could come anywhere in the Czech Republic. Why did you choose to come to Prague?
I could have actually gone anywhere in Europe, because I've got the EU citizenship. Because the objective was to reconnect with my history, my culture, my relatives that live here. I now consider myself a Czech Canadian artist, and I'm working as what I see as a representative of the Czech art scene as well, for good or for bad. But it was very important for me also to, like I said, just kind of reconnect, understand who I am, where I came from, my family's story, what brought me to Canada and why, and then also what inspired me to move back. So this is all stuff that I'm in process. I'm still learning more every day. I'm still having conversations to really identify who I am.
We're all on that journey. I mean, I'm constantly reevaluating my place in the world and my choices in life and all this. It's, I try to do morning pages. Have you ever done this?
No.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea.
There's this lady, Julia Cameron, that wrote this book like 25, 30 years ago now, called The Artist's Way. And she encourages this thing called morning pages, where you take a journal and literally you just write 3 pages every day, period. So no more, no less. And if you have nothing to say, you just write, I have nothing to say, I have nothing to say, I have nothing. It doesn't matter. Just like you write whatever's on your mind every morning, 3 pages. And I find that like after I do that, I'm much more refreshed, and I'm more so like basically you just get whatever shit's in your head out on the paper so that you can then be like, oh, now I can do new things because I don't have this cluttered mind anymore. Yes. So like I'm constantly trying to do that. And every time I do it, it's fabulous, but it takes so much time. It takes like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how quickly I write to do it. And because I guess I'm a slow writer, but I mean, part of it is I'm getting to the idea of the process. Like, so like you said, being in the studio constantly kind of thing. So like, are you a person who is in the studio every day, 9 to 5, whether you actually have something to do or not? Or are you more of a wait for inspiration to come in the studio kind of person?
I'm absolutely somebody that spends every day and 6 days out of 7 in the studio, if I can, of course. If I'm not painting a wall somewhere.
That's still in the studio.
But yeah, essentially working on my art practice, at least from 9 or 9:30 in the morning till whenever in the evening, every day.
And are you making a living at this?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, am I driving a Ferrari or no?
I don't believe any artist really, other than like Jeff Koons or Damien Hirst, is driving a Ferrari.
Yeah. No, there are some street artists I know that are millionaires as well. But yeah, I would say that I'm making a living. Like many artists, either, and I don't even think some of the most successful names in the art culture, I don't necessarily believe that they're in the black, but they're making a living, they're doing what they love, and hopefully they're healthy. And those are my objectives as well. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
Okay, so how do you juggle all that? So you've got commissions.
Yes.
You have works that you put in galleries that are sort of object based for sale.
Yes.
I'm assuming then possibly go for some grants, maybe some residencies, some like run some workshops. Like, basically, what's the combination of things that you figured out that works for you?
Matthew, I'm going to get into this. I apologize. One last note that I want to go back on what inspired me to come to Czech Republic is with the tragic death of my mother from lung cancer, and that was in 2013, which is really primarily the most important reason why I came here, is because I freaked out. Literally freaked out. So about my life, who I am, where I am, why I am doing what I do, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I hate that's a side note, but really that is the most important reason.
Well, it's not a side note, actually, because one question I actually often ask too is, what did your parents do for livings?
Yeah. My parents, okay, so going back, my father worked in Berendorf before he escaped as a filmmaker. My mother was just an accountant, and
my wife is an accountant. That's not a just.
No, absolutely. She was a saint on this planet. So she did everything she could to help me and my family. But they were always, because of my father, and my mother as well, immersed in the arts. So theater, film, paintings, exhibitions, galleries. We were always going throughout our lives to these cultural events, and when they moved or when they escaped to Canada, it was literally find what job you can to put food on the table so my mother could continue her business, career. But my father started working in the automotive industry, because the film industry in Canada at that time in 1973 wasn't as developed as it is now.
Yeah, now it's great.
It's the Hollywood of the North.
Yeah.
So he essentially, and I believe it's why he was so angry and so, I wouldn't use this term loosely, but violent throughout our lives, my early life, because he had an artistic need that he couldn't express. And I told myself, that is not who I'm going to be. If I'm doing what I love to do, then I'm not going to be as angry as he was majority of his life. So
I find that if I don't make something, like just be creative, produce anything, whatever it is, it could be repainting the house, whatever. But like, if I'm not actively creating something, I get angry. I get very agitated. I get very sort of like, I want to make something.
I agree.
Give me an opportunity to create something.
Yes.
So yeah, I could absolutely see like if you had a great career and then you suddenly, you had to move due to whatever kind of extraneous
Yep.
situations, and then you're sort of forced into a job that you possibly didn't like
Yes.
for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Yeah, that could easily make a creative person, very agitated.
Oh yeah, agitate is an understatement. I think.
I don't know your father.
Yeah,
so like,
yeah. The people that do will know that my sister doesn't speak to my father, and they live in the same city in Prague. Here, they don't speak to each other because my sister has come to terms with our history, our childhood. I, on the other hand, I'm seeing life and my relationship with him from a different perspective. I don't want to live with any regrets, so I will tolerate his behavior to a certain extent. I mean, I've kicked him out of the studio probably like a half a dozen times for sure. But it's a fact of our life, and I think it's a good reminder for me to utilize every day that I can in the studio, which is why I'm so disciplined in my art practice, is because I have the possibility, I have the capability of being here. So why not? And if I don't, I know I'm miserable at home. We just spent 2 or 3 days away in Ostrava and Opava and Bezdetsky, I believe, in a beautiful winter chalet for 2 days with our Canadian friends. And I was already getting miserable because I wasn't able to, do what I do in the studio every day. So anyway.
Oh yeah, I woke up this morning and I wanted to get in the studio, and I realized I didn't have the resources I needed. Like,
Yes.
I mean, I didn't have the the materials that I needed to make what I want to make, and I don't have the money to buy any of the materials I need. So I'm just sort of sitting there like, I really want to finish this project that I'm in the middle of,
Yes.
and I can't finish it because I don't have the money to buy the materials to do
Yes.
it, and it's very aggravating. Like, it's funny because like I look at my own ways of dealing with stress and things like this, and
Yes.
like and so I shut down. I get really quiet,
Yes.
and then sooner or later I'm sure I'm going to explode about the whole thing. But
Yes.
but like, yeah, it's very difficult to find that balance of like, how much time do you put in, how much money do you put
Yes.
in, like, because you often hear about stories about artists who are making work and they're doing a career, and something happens, some medical issue or some
Yes.
financial issue, whatever comes up, and suddenly they have to stop making their art because they have to do something else to
Yes.
make a living or whatever. So like, the question is like, so how do you find that good work-life balance,
Yes.
basically, and financial balance too? Because there's the tradition of you have to spend money to make money,
Yes.
but then there is a limit where you have to stop spending money if you're
Sure.
not making enough money.
Right.
To, like
Right.
So like, how are you doing that?
I think like as I am starting to kind of develop my style and name here in Czech Republic, more people are taking notice. I think that the work that I do on the walls, there's the business side of being an artist cannot be ignored. I know that there's a lot of bohemian artists that, they want to deny that they are marketing or accounting
Or commercial?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Or using these umbrella names for activities that they do as an artist, but is a fact. Like business development or marketing or accounting is a fact of our daily life. So when somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, you're a full-time artist, you're living the life, you're in paradise." Well, yes, I am, but there's no such thing as utopia. There isn't. So in my utopia, it means that I spend about 10 hours in the studio every day. I go home, sit on the couch, and crank as much as I can on Instagram and Facebook, because that's like a easy marketing task that can be done somewhat quickly. And many times, as my friends or my wife know, I'm not posting nearly as much as I should because I'm exhausted. And then there's an element of accounting that needs to be done and stuff that people don't see behind the scenes, which is essential to practicing as an artist.
Well, and these are the things that basically one of the reasons why I created this podcast is because there are many things about the
Right.
arts that are simply just not talked
That's
about.
right.
And so that's the stuff I want to talk about.
Yeah, right.
So like, you say you're in the studio 10 hours a day on average.
Yep.
Are you physically producing work for 10 hours a day? Or like, do you take naps? Do you think for a couple hours? Or are you literally, putting paint on canvas or paint on a wall, whatever, 10 hours a day?
I carry a notebook. I realized in Boston that I've been blessed with having ideas. Like just idea development is something that happens to me on the metro or when I'm looking at people or because I paint. I mean, one of my styles is semi-abstract portraits. So I'm looking at people and my inspiration is everywhere. So I have my book, I write my ideas as often as I can. And I think that I probably have like literally 100 unfulfilled ideas that when I finish one, I can go to the next in terms of, let's say, what if I paint a portrait on this set of materials? And also and I'm very careful that I don't call myself a graffiti artist, but I'm a street artist or street inspired artist or urban contemporary artist. So when I'm walking around in space, which I do with my friend Jakub Jandora from Molotow, Prague, he and I go and we wander. And we'll wander around the rail yards because trains they're sexy. And you will see various materials or you'll see various shadows on various corners of buildings or in a train. And it'll inspire me to consider the next technique when I'm painting a portrait or doing a collage or decollage. So for me, am I painting or am I creating 10 hours a day? No. But I would say 6, 7 out of 10. And then I don't take naps during the day. I'm tearing posters, I'm ripping posters, I'm acquiring materials when I find them, or when I'm on the tram, I remember seeing a quantity of wood or steel somewhere in some corner lying rusting. That means I will go there that one day when I don't feel painting on canvas or whatever, I'll go and acquire and accumulate that material and bring it back to the studio. So it's not stealing, it's just accumulating. So anyway, so as a kind of added note to acquiring materials from the street, I personally find work on canvas, 2D work on canvas, rectangular or square, to bore me. It bores me. I mean, it's done a thousand years. It's already been done. So for me and my practice, if I can incorporate found materials or recycled materials that will end up in the dump that are beautiful and they have their own history and their own story to tell, I think that's my objective in the near future and in the future is to do more of that. I think that artists should consider this concept as, and I wouldn't call myself as an eco artist, but they should consider this more than just continuing the cycle of buying materials from a store, whether it be wooden stretchers or canvas. It is, we're living in a society now where we're just continually to acquire and buy more crap. And I'm starting to refuse and I'm starting to kind of protest against it. So you'll see more and more of that in my artwork.
I was going to say, but isn't spray paint actually kind of bad for the environment? Doesn't it have, it used to have.
No comment. No, yes, you're right.
It used
to.
Right. I mean, maybe the ecology, the technology has changed, but I remember it had like CFCs or something like that, ozone in it or something like that.
I'm not perfect. I would never admit to be a perfect person. Yes, no, for sure. The classic spray paint, have chemicals that are probably detrimental to the.
Well, are there new ones though?
Yeah, there are. Yeah,
okay.
they're water based, so. They're water-based paint that I believe are probably a little bit more eco-friendly, and also in terms of odor and chemical. So you can use, MTN or molotow. They have paint where you can use them indoors, and they won't be physically detrimental to your health. So
good.
I think that they're considering this as well in terms of providing materials for artists in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I'm finding. Unfortunately, in my old age, I've become snobbier and snobbier about art materials, and because I'll go around to stores trying to find just the right material thing that I'm looking for, and I find it more and more difficult to find. I'm sort of famous among my friends and family that I always want something that doesn't exist.
Yes,
and I'm finding that basically the things are starting to exist, but they're very expensive.
Yes.
I always want the most expensive materials of everything. It's ridiculous. So the idea of flipping the other way and utilizing materials that basically pre-exist and sort of reworking them is a smart way to go, because I would imagine it is very cost effective in many ways.
Yes. I mean, I know who my gurus are, from a portrait perspective, Chuck Close, still living to this day and painting gorgeous paintings that, I mean, they're unbelievable in person. So I make the joke that I would like to be considered the Czech Close. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then also Robert Rauschenberg, because he was an artist while living that was living in New York City and literally going around his apartment and acquiring everything that was in the trash. You know, his famous goat through the tire. I mean, like, this is stuff that I think adds way, way more interest to me. And then here in Czech Republic, Krzysztof Kantera, what he does with materials it's incredible as well. And I'll follow his lead in Czech Republic as being somebody who advocates for the use of found materials in their art.
I think it's great. I'm all for it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't fit for my personal ethos and style and whatever else. But okay, back to the business of it.
Yes,
Because I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my God, if I was in the studio 10 hours a day producing work, I would be spending so much money on materials and resources and stuff. How do you balance the spending of money on your materials? Because I mean, like, I've come into your studio a number of times where you have like probably a couple hundred or maybe even €1,000 worth of spray paint sitting in the thing. So like, how do you balance the expenditures with the incomes?
It's an interesting story. If I can go into it really quickly,
You can go into it as long as you'd like.
Yeah. So when I came to Czech Republic, the first thing I did was find out where the sources were to buy spray paint. And there's some stores here that were classic, but of course, as an artist on a budget, you try and find the best possible price. And I found it online, and I bought, I think, about 3,000 crowns worth of spray paint. The manager,
which is about $120.
Yeah, that's right, American.
Yep.
So the manager called me back and said the store, which is primarily focused on selling streetwear, clothing, shoes, accessories, but they also sold some spray paint to complement the street vibe. They're getting out of it, and would I consider buying more at an outrageous discount? So I asked him, well, what is the quantity of their inventory? He gave me a price that I couldn't refuse, and I bought the whole inventory. So that's how I started my studio, buying, I think it was close to 350 or 400 cans of spray paint right off the bat. It was a massive investment, but in comparison to what I was paying in Boston, I thought this is literally an offer I cannot refuse.
Sure.
And so the funny part is that this manager of the spray paint, he later opened Molotow Prague, and that is now close to my best friend here in Czech Republic, Jakub Jandora, and we maintain a relationship. And that history between him and I hope will last a long time, because we have a lot of laughs about it. But so that's another element to being an artist, that the term procurement, spending some time in the end of the day and finding who's got sales, or where do I have a credit, let's say, or where can I, on any kind of given project, where can I spend as little money as possible in order to execute the best possible concept, and so if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I think about it every day.
Yeah. And then, of course, when I work on various projects, I might estimate that I'll use 30 cans of spray paint, and maybe I use 28, so there will be some leftovers, or there'll be some half-used cans that I can save for later that I tend to start to accumulate. So that's where I am now.
Okay. So income then, what resources so I talked about, like, are you running workshops, you're getting commissions, are you applying for grants, are you having straight up sales, how is your income working for you here?
Income is coming from selling artwork, from commissions to do exterior walls, installations, commissions as well. I have 0 grants. I have never applied for a grant here in Czech Republic. I don't have any financial assistance coming from anywhere else but from the sale or of my artwork or completion of projects.
Okay. Next question along that line is then, these sales that you're producing, are these sales through social medias, through your own website? Are they through galleries? Like, how are they manifesting?
I have series of collectors that are following me, and I'm very lucky and grateful for them, that once in a while they feel like they want to complement their living space, and they see a piece of work that I've either included in an exhibition or in my studio, which I invite them to come as often as they'd like, and they support me in that way. I have some representation here in Prague that, they could be happy if they sold more, but that's probably, I would say 95% of my sales come from word of mouth or from collectors that I have either in Czech Republic, Canada, and the United States as well.
Through social media? Or
no,
your
I would say
website?
these are people that, okay, so are you talking new or people who have come to me
that's
for
sort
the
of
first time?
Both,
Yeah.
really, is sort of the question. Is like, because one of my things that, again, keeps coming up through my conversations on these podcasts is finding people to collect your work is great, but maintaining that relationship. So like finding somebody to buy one piece is great.
Yes.
Finding somebody who will then buy a second, a third, a fourth. What technique have you found to continue to build that relationship? So like, I hear stupid things, email, every 6 months or something, send out an email to your collectors just saying, hey, this is my new works. These are for sale. Like, do you do emails? Do you keep in touch with them? Like, do you touch base with them via an email, a social media, personal contact, whatever? Like,
not at all.
What sort of professional business techniques do you do to continue these relationships?
I do not hard sell anybody. I don't want to. You know what I mean? Because I think that my story, the work that I do, if it speaks to somebody and they're interested in my story and they want to complement their living space, which to me is the highest reward for an artist possible,
Absolutely.
then it becomes a natural relationship. Like I have collectors that I don't say, hey, I've got a new piece you should see, come to the studio tomorrow, because I know inevitably they'll just come naturally and say, hey, what are you up to? And we would like to come for a coffee, the cafe Pragovka, and we can stop at your studio, and then they'll see something they like and they'll pick something up. Or, of course, through exhibitions, it's easy. It's on the wall. There's a series of 10 to 15 or 30 paintings or pieces of artwork, and they'll say, that one's beautiful, I want to buy it. So for me, I want to be as authentic as I can. It is something that I learned while after my mother's passing, that I'm no longer going to be somebody who is too greasy and is trying to like email newsletters. And this to me, is that something that I won't do in the future? It's possible, I'll consider it. But for right now, anybody that wants to come to the studio and have a conversation about art or what I'm doing, or they saw something, I'm open to it, because that connection, that human interaction to me is the reason why I'm doing artwork, is because we might not be here for a long time, but if we can make the short time that we're here incredibly positive by having these conversations or interactions, all the better for me, because when that last moment of my life, which will come, I want to say, man, I met some exceptional people, and maybe we differed, we had a difference of opinions, but the conversations were excellent. And that's it. Goodbye. So that's it. So anyway, the point of my answer is that I'm not implementing any business strategies right now in terms of marketing my work. I would probably, in the short term, start to in terms of marketing my work outside of Czech Republic, in Germany and in Austria. It's literally my next assignment. But as of right now, no. How about that for long answer to your short and sweet question?
It's really painful though. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, like, because I, like many people that listen to this podcast, I'm sure, like, we're always trying to figure out, like, how do we find collectors? How do we find the people that will buy or appreciate our works and stuff? Like, that's the hard thing, because but beyond that, I mean, it's also subject related, material related, scale related, price point related. Like, I mean, there's so many variables. That's the thing is like, I'm a person that loves a system. Like I love organization. I love a system and all that. And unfortunately, I chose an industry, the arts, that has no system to it whatsoever. It's completely random and subjective. And so like, who's going to buy what and for what price and how often is completely random, and there's no way to predict or even set up or create any sort of scenario where X will work.
I think like the model, like a car dealership model, is not possible.
Right.
You know, like to set up your inventory and put a big billboard and have people come, and then, you know, their sales strategy and predict the pipeline and et cetera, et cetera.
It can't be done in the arts.
No, I think when you have a name, you know, that is out there, massive.
Well, once you have a
that's
brand.
Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right. It becomes almost like a brand. Then, yes, you will have people walking through the doors of galleries more often than not looking for the brand, without question. At this moment.
Yeah, but most, I mean, you know, 98% of the
right.
working artists do not have a brand.
Correct. That is correct.
So like we don't have that luxury. And this is my problem is that all the conversations I keep hearing about, reading about, so like I watch videos and read articles about stuff, it's always about these brand name artists kinds of things. And it's not about the literally like the you and I, the day-to-day working artist that is just like pounded out there selling work and trying to get enough money to continue to make more work.
Yes.
And those are the conversations I want to have.
I consider myself a working class artist, you know, that I do enjoy getting my fingernails dirty and painting myself or executing the work myself. In the future, having assistants would be wonderful. And on the other hand, I do also enjoy having a glass of champagne after the fact, after an exhibition, or chatting with people. So I can live on both sides of the world.
Really, you're a champagne drinker?
I enjoy champagne.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
I do.
I would not have pictured champagne for you.
No, I don't think many people would, but I do enjoy it. It doesn't come often, but anyway. But I think it is a part of the artistic business that we have to work towards creating our name. And I think by how to do that is to focus like 99% on the quality of your work and make sure that it's as authentic as it can be. So putting as much of your heart and mind into each piece and the concept and execution, not cranking them out like cookies, is for me what I believe is complementing, let's say, sales.
All right, let's go back to social media. You brought it up. You said you don't use, the people say you don't use it enough and all this. So like, give me a scenario of like, so what would be the way you would like to use it and how do you use it?
Yeah, right. So as an example, the big wall in Prague that I just painted was 53 meters long. The intention was to paint 14 portraits and I painted 8. I created a contest because I include some code and some secret messages in my work for people to figure it out, which means they have to spend more than just 15 seconds looking at my work. And the objective was to post one clue per day over 8 or 9 days. And at the end of the 9 days, if people or my followers or people that engage with me, if they were able to figure out the code, the winner, the first person who sends me a message would win a piece of original artwork. Now, the idea was that the clues would be released over 9 days. And I believe it's been a month. So this contest, has it's kind of lasted more than the time that I had envisioned, but it's just because I don't have the time or energy to do it. And I'm hoping that before the new year, today and tomorrow.
I was going to say that's like 2 days away.
Yeah, today and tomorrow, I will release the last 2 clues so that I can have this project finished. But, I think that the rules of engagement on Instagram, as an example, is that you should be posting at least once a day to kind of build and maintain and your following and your platform. And if I'm lucky, I'm maybe posting twice a week, if I'm lucky.
Right. Okay. So like recently I got some feedback and some input on like social media use and I found it very enlightening, which is that posting on social media is not the most beneficial thing. Other people posting or other people reposting or other people whatever tagging all this, that is exponentially more beneficial than the volume or quantity that you post.
Yes.
agree, disagree.
I'm not a software architect. I don't know how they design, literally how they design it.
Well, and this is my problem
Yeah.
is that because, okay, going back to like my childhood and my training is like, I grew up in a time before social medias and before computers, even for that matter. My problem is that in the old days, the art world was all handshake, who you know, reputations, all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
These days, it has transitioned to that a lot of the, not all, I mean, there's still the handshake and the get to know people and all that at art fairs and things like this. But a lot of it is based on algorithms, which are completely different and uncontrollable. You can't manipulate them, you can't work them, you can't meet an algorithm and say, hi, can you, please, give my thing better, because I mean, I'm trying really hard and I think I do a good job. Could you, please, algorithmically promote me? Like it's become this thing that like you basically have to play their game.
Yes.
I find that very painful.
I agree. And not to mention, it's not necessarily an authentic practice for me. I like to create. I don't want to, but okay. So on the other hand, I know that there's many gallerists out there that are looking at your social media platform. They want to see that you've got 20, 50, 30, 40,000 followers, and they'll consider your portfolio once they look at your platform. Now, if they look deeper into it and they see a post from some of these artists and they'll see that they've got 40,000 followers, but 125 likes on any given post, that is not an authentic relationship. And to me, that is clear that particular individual had purchased 30, 40, 35,000 of those followers. So, and then on the other hand, if you see some artists and they've got 25,000 followers and they're having a very high percentage of engagement, let's say even 2,000 likes or 3,000 likes, that to me is very clear that that was natural. That was a natural buildup because they're doing exceptional work, and also they're out there and they're really they've rolled up their sleeves and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is amazing. So that's why I don't necessarily put too much of my time and energy into it. I will concentrate on the quality of my work, my message, who I am as a person, as an artist. If there are gallerists that want to work with me, that's incredible. And I guarantee that it'll be a lifelong relationship, because I just believe that the person I am is going to complement both sides. But on the other hand, if they expect me to purchase 30,000 followers that aren't going to engage, that's not going to be who I am. I'm not going to do that. So what I meant, it's not that necessarily I have the biggest ego in the world that I think like, anybody who knows me is going to benefit, their life is going to benefit. That's not at all. What I meant is that if a gallery or a museum was to engage with me in an exhibition, is that I'm going to do what I can to promote it as much as I can through my platform.
Well, see, it's interesting because to a certain extent, like you have the luxury that like, I can only talk for myself, but like I don't. You can and do commission works.
Yes.
So like if a space or a gallerist or an institution came and said, hey, could you do something for us, and you work collaboratively with us to come up with something, that's a unique characteristic in the art world.
Yes.
Because like me, I come from a very, very traditional background where like I go into my studio, I produce an object, I bring that object out into the world, and you either like it or you don't. There.
Yes.
Whereas you are able and willing to be more collaborative in
Yes.
that whole process. And that's a reasonably unique thing among the object-based artists in the world.
It's more exciting. I think like many of the exhibitions that I've seen that incorporated street or urban contemporary artists who, like as an example, Michal Škapa, like he will bring in his exhibition space a car, and he will spray paint the car inside and out and everywhere. And I think that's more interesting to me. I think that, just the White Cube Gallery that wants to hang 2D artwork. I mean, like to me, there's some great artists, don't get me wrong, that would inspire me in terms of the work they do in this format. But I think for me personally, it would, as an example, at the end of next month, January 2020, I'm going to have an exhibition in Opava. And I'm speaking with the gallerist about finding a wall in his community in Opava that will be there either permanent or semi-permanent, and also do something within the gallery space that I can, as an installation, so that I can maybe improve the quality of life of the community, and also in a roundabout way promote myself as the artist as well, right? So in that sense, and that's what I meant, that when I do work, I would like to be able to promote everybody's efforts and do it in a casual way, but also in a fun way, in a street art kind of way.
Well, speaking of that, actually, a previous guest on the podcast were the people who ran a gallery called Improper Walls in Vienna, and they actually do exactly that.
Yeah, right.
So I highly recommend talking to them. I can give you their contact
that'd be awesome.
information.
Yeah, that'd be great. There's one source in Vienna that I'm hoping to do some outdoor exterior work in Vienna next year in 2020. So that's my objective. So I'll definitely reach out to them.
Yeah, there is an entire collective of people, seemingly sort of district by district within Vienna, that do public art pieces.
Yes.
And they're funded by the community, the districts, and they're given, and certain galleries and certain organizations are the ones that coordinate them.
Yes. I think it's starting to happen here in Prague as well. I think that, let's say in Prague 7, Hlošovice, there's a number of walls and spaces where legal work can be done. And, everybody knows if you go to Berlin, the city is like a coloring book, and not in a bad way. There are tags as well. And, but I would say that you can literally go to Berlin and spend a week just looking at facades and walls.
Absolutely.
Which is cool to me. It's like a living gallery space. And I hope, and I would like to consider myself as somebody who's going to continue to promote that concept, not only in Prague, but within Czech Republic as well.
Have you run into any issues about sort of trying to blend and marry the sort of fine arts world and the street art world?
Totally. I think, and the label that I use, even marketing myself, is urban contemporary. So artists, I went to art school, I went to university, but at the same time, I was painting illegally on the streets, graffiti. But that's not part of my world now. Like I have older knees and ankles, and what I used to consider myself as as one of the Olympic fence jumpers, when running from police, I can't do that anymore. So I really would consider myself as a fine artist who has a street art pedigree. And I think that's, for me, my opinion, the most exciting subgenre within art now.
And has people in the fine arts world been accepting of that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like if you go to the art fairs in Miami or Vienna or Venice, etc., I think there's a lot of street artists that are now being exhibited in some of the largest private galleries, represented by large private galleries around the world, and also into the museums. So even if you go back in history, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring were artists that transitioned from the street into galleries, and now both of their names are in the pantheons of auction houses, and they're in 9 figures now. Literally 9 figures. Yeah. So it's not a new thing. It goes back several decades, but that's exactly how I see my career evolving.
So you have been moving around a lot, and you've also moved between continents in different countries, even things like this. I've been talking with a lot of people, and one of the things that keeps coming up is the need to build a community. Mm-hmm. I found that street artists are actually pretty good with being a community, even if they're not physically in the same location. So the question is sort of like, when you moved from Canada to the United States, it sounds like to then Canada, then to the Czech Republic, and you've been here now for 5 years, how easy or difficult was it to create almost a new community here?
I think it's within street art, it's amazing because you go to one of the outlets where they are selling spray paint, and you have a conversation, and I dare anybody, positively of course, to go to Molotow in Prague and meet Jakub Jandora. And that is a guy that lives, breathes, sleeps his street art. So you go there and you have a conversation with him about spray paint or literally anything, and that guy will engage, and you will immediately sense a feeling of acceptance. Or you bring your sketchbook or your black book to him and show him what you do, and I guarantee that he'll incorporate you some way in the near future into some action that he's putting on. So you're right. It's not easy, but it's just a fact of life. For me, as an artist who I hope in my career will transcend borders, I'm working on exhibitions in other countries. It's not easy to do, but it's just another challenge, another homework. When you get into a community, you connect with the people, like-minded individuals, whether it's in art or street art or whatever it is that you do. And, if you're cool and if you're positive, maybe you'll find some friends. And if, I think ends up, and if you're not, then you might have more difficulty. I'm not sure. You know what I mean?
I feel like I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'm having a lot of difficulty. Yeah. And so that's why I'm sort of like, oh gosh, it's so hard. I mean, part of it is that of course I'm getting older,
yes.
I'm 46 years old. It's just not as easy to make new friends and make new connections because a lot of the people that are my peers, as far as like my age
yes.
and my experiences, already have their communities, and it's very difficult for me to then sort of enter into their existing community. So like I wanted to hear some other insights.
Oh no, this is classic psychology. The in-group, out-group, the cool club versus the not cool, the nerds, and all this other kind of stuff. Like this goes back for probably from the beginning of time, human civilization, and it will in the future as well. I have no answer to that because when I came to Prague, I knew that I needed to reconnect, as I said, with relatives and in the art community. And I feel so far it's not been easy, like for a fact, I have an accent. I don't speak Czech. Excellent. I'm working on it, but people know immediately that I wasn't born and raised here. Mm-hmm. But as I said, if you come with from the perspective of authenticity, I think that you'll find somebody. I think that you'll connect with some people here inevitably, and see where that goes.
Yeah, but it's the point that I'm trying to get to is that sense of the need of a community.
Yeah, sure.
Because one thing I've been learning through the act of doing this podcast is that I made many mistakes in my career. Mm-hmm. And one of those big mistakes was moving a lot and not keeping old connections,
yes.
Not maintaining them and not growing with them and all this. Like, I mean, I have lots of friends that I grew up with in Washington, D.C. that are now curators
yes.
at museums and stuff that I haven't but I made the mistake of not keeping up with them
sure.
for 20 years. And like, if I were to try now to reconnect with them, it would be blatantly obvious that I'm trying to use them. And so I can't do it, it would not be authentic.
Yeah, for sure. And Matthew, I think that what you might be experiencing is not unique. You're not alone, because I think a lot of people are, let's say, going on social media or through the computer on the internet to find a sense of home. And, I spoke a little bit about it in my previous exhibition with somebody called Virtual Identity Discrepancy, where the avatars that they create to connect with people may not be authentic to who they are in real. And they feel more comfortable online than they do in person. And so this is a topic that I discuss as well in my artwork, where, human interaction, the quality of the human interaction and how it might be impacted by technology are concepts that are being studied by psychologists around the world. It's a fact of our life in today's society.
Yeah, I mean, I find it, I'm a reasonably outgoing person, reasonably extroverted. I can generally hold on to conversation
yes.
with most people, but I've become more introverted and less outgoing as time has gone on. I don't know if it's because I've just gotten bored or mm-hmm. gotten scared or gotten intimidated yes. or anxious. I mean, I take Xanax, but sometimes I do it for fun. Sometimes yes. I do it for
sure.
actual needs.
Sure.
But like, there's a difficulty with it sort of growing older and not having like.
Sure.
I'll even go further than this. So like there's a difficulty with getting older in the arts and not finding the success that I'd hoped that I would have achieved by this point in my life,
Yes.
that gets a little depressing. Like we all want more
Sure.
success, and there are days where it's like, why do I keep doing it?
No, I think it was very interesting. In the last 48 hours, I was asked, what would I do to become famous? And so and literally it all goes back to the moment when my mother passed away. I thought that I found, I had some time to kind of contemplate my life and really meditate about it. And I came to the conclusion that managing expectations was the single most important thing that I can ever do in my life. Not only my own, but the expectations of my partner, my friends, gallerists, curators, everybody in my sphere. Managing expectation essentially allows me to limit the disappointment or that is possible, and that may not always be a fact. Maybe people will supersede your expectations, and those are miracle moments, right? When somebody goes above and beyond what you ever thought was possible.
So set low bars and always be surprised when they're exceeded.
But then, like the Canadian friends that we went with to this chalet, I mean, they're angels on the earth, where they, out of nowhere, they'll invite us to this chalet, or they'll do stuff with us I don't ask this from them, but it's just like I said there, I can't explain it because they're just so giving people, and there are people on this earth that are like them that shock you every time, because the norm and the average today in society is not that, right? So, and then there's, of course, there are people that are well below the average, that are takers, and they're stealers of your energy, which is the worst of them all. Forget about stealing your car or stealing your money or whatever. They're stealing your energy that, I don't wish the worst of them, because I've seen the worst, but you don't wish too much positive to them, because they're not giving you much positive back.
I was just listening to an interview actually with a psychologist talking about like givers and takers, and how these are there's givers, takers, and moderate, so sort of middle people. Like sometimes they give, sometimes they take, kind of thing. And then when you sit back and you think like, am I a giver or a taker? And like, I always thought of myself as a giver, but in hindsight, maybe I'm not so much of a giver.
But Matthew, I think that's okay. I mean, like, we're all trying to figure out who we are.
But I'm a professor. I should be a giver.
Well, you know what? I think that it's going to take you your life to figure it out. And I think for me personally, I know it is, because I would say right now, probably 2/3 of my life, I've been the biggest asshole on the planet. I've treated everybody like garbage.
Okay, great.
No,
I'm
wasn't
saying,
great.
No, I'm saying great because my background is if you ask any of my previous employers, possibly even ex-girlfriends, definitely my students, I was an arrogant ass.
Sure.
Like, holy shit, such an arrogant ass. Yeah. And I have come to realize that while maybe it was a great persona to put on as a professor, to be that, to sort of push them to try to be their best, it wasn't good for me in every other way. Like, and I'm, to a certain extent, like through this podcast and through this, like putting this out there, I'm like basically trying to make amends. Like, I made a mistake.
Yep.
Yeah. I shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
That was a bad way to be as a person.
Yeah.
As a teacher, possibly as a boyfriend.
Yes.
Whatever.
No, for sure.
And we can do better. Like, I mean, any of us that have fallen into these kinds of things, we can change and try to do it better. Like, I used to be so arrogant. I remember thinking I should be friends with this person because this person can give me this benefit in my life. Like, I was such an ass, and you can't do that.
No, I mean, like, you can, but I think it'll come back to burn you.
Yeah.
And for me, and again, I don't wish the worst on anybody. And I know what the worst, I've seen the worst face to face, let's say with the tragedy of my mother, but also as a younger partner, with romantic partner in the past, there is a girlfriend that I'll never be able to say, apologize to. I'll never be able to say sorry the way that I treated her, because she passed away as well. And, I tried to engage with her mother one time in a grocery store, and when I saw her, It was the most nervous thing I've ever done. And her mother was very upset. And I understand. And so let's say this ex-girlfriend or my mother, I thank the power, the higher power, whoever that is, that I'm conscious enough to understand or see the mistakes that I may have made in the past in terms of interacting with people. And I also am thankful to have the strength to try and change who I'm going to be now and in the future, not only as an artist, but as a person as well, right? Primarily a person.
Yeah, I mean, I have a history. I used to be a drug addict. I used to do all kinds of heroin and
Yes.
cocaine, all kinds of things. Anything I could get my hands on, pretty much. My list of drugs that I haven't done is shorter than my list of drugs I have done.
Right.
And, part of that was at the end. I went to Narcotics Anonymous,
Yes.
and I tried that whole thing. It didn't work for me, but it's interesting. It's a very interesting idea. I admire the people that do it. I think it's a great system, and part of it is like,
Not, you mean self-medicating, or by who are consciously trying to change?
I'm saying people who choose to go to Alcoholics Anonymous,
that's right.
Narcotics Anonymous,
Yep, I
whatever
gotcha.
sort of anonymous thing.
Yeah.
I think that system is fabulous.
Yep.
I think it's really great. I think it's incredibly beneficial for many people.
Yes.
It didn't do much for me
Yes.
personally, but every now and then, like you got to sit back and say, like, well, but like the foundation of that kind of stuff is really a good core. Like,
Yep.
and I mean, even so, like, it comes back to this arts and this podcast. I know, because I'm going off the rails here, but because in the arts, we all think when we start, we think being an artist is the act of being in the studio by yourself. You produce a beautiful thing, and then you bring it into the world and all this. But what I've come to realize over my decades in this industry is that it's not that. Like, you start there, it's the starting point, but that is only a fraction of the entire act
Agreed.
of being an artist.
Agreed.
Being an artist is about the community. You chose to be in the arts because you like the people, the lifestyle, the creativity that surrounds it all,
Right.
kind of things. But like, the act of producing a piece of art is like 10% of the entire process of being an artist, because then there's the business aspect of it, there's social aspect of it, the community aspect of it, the sales, the maintaining of it, the social media, all the other things that we have to do. I want to stress that we have to do,
Yes.
because just sitting in the studio and making art is not fulfilling enough.
No.
Like, I can't, I've got these beautiful pieces that I've made. I was just having this conversation with my wife last night. Like, I have these beautiful pieces that I've made that nobody has bought.
Yes.
And it doesn't feel fulfilled until it is either, well, even just exhibited would be probably good enough, but like, exhibiting the work and putting it out in the public, getting those reactions, potentially even getting somebody who loves it and admires it and respects it enough to want to then pay for it and have it in their lives.
Yes.
That's the most fulfilling thing that I could ever imagine. And by the way, on a side note, my favorite thing is if somebody says that they put a piece of my art in their bathroom, because the bathroom is the most used room in the house. Like, so I love bathroom art. I think it's fabulous, but making my art is great, but you need that community, those connections, those people, whatever, those supporters that build it to the culmination of the production of the piece. Like, making it's great and you can be happy with it, but you need those other people and those community members to fulfill the destiny of that piece of art.
Yes. Well, the thing is as well, I think that for me, the difficult part of being an artist is that it is very egocentric and self-focused, right? But where I feel like in the last few years here in Czech Republic, where I felt the most positive, not only about myself personally, but about what I'm doing, is when I supported other artists, or where I reached out, and I commented, let's say as a really basic kind of, where you reach out and comment about somebody's artwork that you think is spectacular. That feels really great. Like, I have a young artist friend, Adam Zimmerman, who's really young in terms of his development, and he loves it. And you feel every ounce of his passion for the gift of creativity, and you know how far he is as well from really getting to where he should be or where he wants to be. But to support him just verbally, or or buying a piece of his artwork or whatever, as an artist and with limited resources, still feels so good that I feel like that's where I feel the best in terms of my life as an artist, is when it's not about me. It's about the community, as you mentioned. It's about supporting other artists in whatever way that I can. That's the coolest feeling for me.
All right, let's try and wrap this up. So my final two questions that I always ask everybody. Have you listened to the podcast?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you know these questions.
I've listened to the one with Louise, and yes, with chemistry.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so the first one is basically some advice, some experience. I always am hoping for somebody to share an experience that they had. They're like, oh, please, everybody stay away from this. You're like, I fucked this royally. Don't do this.
Yes.
So some sort of advice to artists, that to either help them on their path to success, or something to stay away from that might hurt their path to success.
It's interesting because when I heard that students from Beal Art are going to come to Prague, I thought, okay, if I had the chance to speak to them, what would I tell them? And I think that what I would tell them would differ from day to day. Literally, like one day I would tell them to run as far away from being an artist as they can. But on the other days when I'm even 10% to 90% positive, I would say it's going to be the hardest work that you've ever done in your life. I mean, it's going to exhaust every ounce of energy that you have on many of the days. So you will have to exercise a incredible amount of patience, an incredible amount of self-doubt. And many times when you're looking for support outside, externally, you may not get that support. So it's going to be very internal, and it's not going to be an easy road. But then, as you said, Matthew, when somebody supports you, when somebody sends you a message or a picture that they have your picture in their living room or something, I mean, it's one of the most rewarding things that can possibly happen, that somebody shares a living space. So in terms of advice, I mean, really focus on your work. Like, I think that's where it all comes from, is what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And really, it is about yourself, and focus on the quality of your work, really. I mean, like, I don't know what else to say.
No, I want to focus on actually something you just said. It's a little thing, but I keep running into this because I do portfolio reviews,
Yes.
all the time. The why.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing, because to a certain extent, I find it's really easy. I know this sounds egotistical, but like, it's easy to make a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Whatever you define as beautiful.
Sure.
So a beautiful thing. But the need for the why is of the utmost importance these days. Now, maybe it wasn't at a certain time in art history, whatever, but like these days, people want to connect with the work.
Yes.
They want something beyond the aesthetics. So like, making a beautiful thing is great, but it has to have a really substantial, provocative, evocative, visceral why. Why did you make
Sure.
it? And like, the phrase I often use when I'm doing reviews is like, why did you make it, and why should somebody else care?
Yes. Right. And I think, like, one other element is the term inspiration, and where do people find inspiration, or how? And Chuck Close said that he doesn't need to find inspiration. He goes in the studio and he starts getting his fingers dirty with paint, and inspiration comes to him by just interacting in the studio. So the act of doing, so that the advice would be, live your life. Travel, I would say, travel as much as possible, so that you can get a global perspective on the human experience. And then inevitably how it will affect your practice, your style, or your whatever it is you're doing. Yeah, live your life and live with some sort of authenticity.
And be patient.
Well, yeah.
This is another thing that I keep running into with younger creative people, is like, they think that they should be successful quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
And easily.
Yeah.
And it's just not.
Well, I can only imagine how many proposals galleries are getting from artists who have, either not even graduated, or they're 1, 2 year, 3 years out of school. they must be getting proposals like it's PDFs coming out the wazoo, and whether they're ready or not, I'm not sure, but I understand the process. I get it, because I was also there. But like I said, I think the most important thing they could do is live their life, travel as much as possible, understand who you are, and then inevitably when you kind of get an idea, when you've made some mistakes and you've learned consciously from those mistakes, then I think you can become a better artist.
Yeah. I mean, I always say to my wife that basically it's like, you need to enjoy the process, because oftentimes the return on the end outcome might take 5 or 10 years.
Yes.
So you cannot rely on the return, we'll call it return on investment, basically.
Right.
You have to enjoy what you do, period.
Right.
And then hopefully, theoretically, there will be a return on investment, but you cannot rely on the return on investment.
And listen, I think like the creative process is not necessarily about enjoyment as well, to be honest. I think that there's a lot of suffering. I think that there's the suffering, like it could be one day it could be financial, one day it could be romantic, and all these, joy, happy, sad, angry, mad, all these will inevitably spice and complement the work that you do, in your studio. So the spectrum of emotions, I think, are important. But you really do have to, in the end, that next day when you're pissed off and you wake up, you still have to go to the studio and do something, or go and, out in the world and find some materials if you have to, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Acquire.
Acquire. So, yeah.
All
Not
right.
an easy question.
Unfortunately, these questions are not easy in general. But what I'm finding over the course of this podcast, so the intention of the podcast is that no individual person has all the answers. But through all the sheer volume of conversations I have, there can be little things gleaned from this person, little things gleaned from that person, and somehow I can sort of create a sense of like what's the most common theoretical, conceptual, whatever kind of thing, and it's working. I have learned exponentially more by my conversations of this podcast, and hopefully the listeners have as well, than I have by reading or watching videos or whatever of anything, because it's the sheer volume of input that is being more helpful than like one person saying this is the way to success, right? Because there is no one way to success.
No.
I mean, like, in this industry.
My history and what I've endured, I wish it on no one. Literally.
By the way, how old are you?
I'm 43.
Okay.
I wish it on no one, but that's my experience. That's my life experience, right? So many of the things that I've just spoken about are things that I've learned in my life while I was learning to be a professional artist. So whether your listeners will take, if there's anything positive that they can get from it, I hope there is. I'm not sure. So I think a lot of the people that you've interviewed, are providing their perspective. This is my perspective. Take from it what you can, what you will.
Okay, which leads on to the final question, which you have heard before, yes? Maybe not?
Go ahead. I think I may know.
Final question that I ask everybody is basically, I have created an arbitrary... I've created an arbitrary goal, a quantifiable task that I'm trying to achieve through the things that I learn from this podcast, which is I'm trying to get one piece of my artwork, my existing artwork, on exhibition in the Museum of Modern Art in New York.
Yes.
What should I do in my career to put me on the path to achieve that goal?
What can you do?
And just to be clear, whatever you're going to tell me, I will actually do it, and I will make a podcast following the progress of my getting a piece of my work in the Museum of Modern Art on exhibition. So not in the collection, not a solo exhibition, but just one piece in an exhibition. I'm setting the standards a little low on a really high bar.
Yeah, right.
Well, it could be any museum. It could be Tate Modern. It could be any other museum you want. I chose a Museum of Modern Art. That was my beacon growing up. So.
Yes. Well, as somebody that has not exhibited there, I don't know what to share with you. Although, I mean, what I spoke about earlier is to live with authenticity in terms of your work, to find as much honesty in your work as possible, and then connect with people who have, who are either curators, gallerists that have similar life view, that want to connect with other artists that have that philosophy in life. I think that I think it's a natural process, to be honest. I think that inevitably, if it was fate for that to happen, I think that inevitably it will. And that's why for me and my work, I would love to be in some of the biggest galleries, not only in Czech Republic, but throughout Europe. And I do believe that inevitably I might have the chance, as long as that moment comes of opportunity, maybe a little bit of luck, then it'll happen. But Matthew, I don't know if I have an answer for you. Yeah, I mean, literally. I thought about it ever since we met, what would I say if Matthew asked me that question? How would I guide my answer to that? And I think I'm living more kind of like short-term, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, let alone like next year or the next 10 years or where I want to be. I don't know. How about that for a confusing answer?
It's fine. I mean, the reason for it is because, I made this podcast and it's like, basically, I'm asking people to listen to this podcast because theoretically this podcast is about how to be more successful in your artistic careers. Mm-hmm. But yet I can't quantifiably say, yes, if you listen, you will be more successful. Yeah, right. So I created this arbitrary goal, basically. So if I can achieve that goal, then that means that everything I've learned from all these conversations does actually work.
Yes. I mean, from a street art perspective, when you look at, let's say, Scope or some of the really, really big art fairs, and the street artists that are being represented there, some of them have 1,000 walls already done, 1,000 murals, and not just little walls, massive, huge murals. So if they're there, then my objective is very clear in front of me, is that I should be in the 150, 200 walls range, and then I can feel in my career that I'm ready to be represented at Scope or somewhere else, right?
Well, which leads to a question that keeps coming up again and again, because I put this idea of having a piece in Museum of Modern Art as a definition of success, basically. What's your definition of success? I
mean, success is, for me, living month to month, literally financially stable, where I have collectors that I've engaged with beyond collectors, that they have become friends. I think my success goals are more holistic, in that I'd like to live as a good person, so that in that last moment of my life, that somebody in the future might say, hey, that guy was pretty cool. He wasn't absolutely an asshole. He was actually okay.
As he was in the past.
Yeah, that's right. I'm shooting for okay. That's my personality
It's
goal.
Very Canadian of you. It's good.
Yeah. And then, if I can touch people through my artwork and share my stories of struggle, and they get it and they sense it, I think that would be my goal, literally. I know it might sound kind of kitsch or cheesy, but literally the concept of my artwork is about stories. It's about the human experience. So if I can connect with people at that level, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, when I started this podcast, I created this arbitrary sort of task to try and achieve this. And I've had conversations with people about what is success and all this. And realistically, my personal goal for my art, on the one hand, in my ego, I say I want to be in the art history books.
Yeah.
Of course, every creative person wants to be that person that's the symbol of a movement or a style or whatever, and in the art history books. But on the realistic day-to-day basis, what I really want is I want to make enough money to be able to continue to make my work and be financially stable.
Agreed. From a business perspective, agreed.
But not even from a business perspective. I want to just have enough money to make whatever I want to make without having to be concerned about money. So for instance, I've got this idea right now of this piece that I want to make with encaustic, which of course is a reasonably expensive material. So I just simply can't, I have to put off making this piece for another couple months until I can save up some money to buy this resource kind of thing. So I want to not have to do that. I want to be able to just buy whatever art material I want, make whatever I want to make when I want to make it.
Yes.
And not put a burden on my household.
Sure. Which it's your profession, right? So I understand that.
Yeah. Hopefully we can all achieve that goal.
I agree. Good luck and good health.
Indeed. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you all for your support of the Wise Fool Patreon account. If you've not become part of our network, By becoming a supporter, you receive the opportunity to help in the choosing of upcoming guests, cities that I should visit, and also you can give me questions that you would like me to ask future guests. You can find us and support us at Patreon, patreon.com/thewisefool, all one word. If you enjoy the podcast, I would appreciate a 5-star rating, and please tell your friends to listen and subscribe also. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.